in theaters now from director Barry Levinson and writer Nick Pileggi, who wrote Goodfellas, and starring Robert De Niro in a dual role, is The ALTO Knights. This is an organized crime film. This is a mafia film set over a span of time. It jumps around in time a lot. And it stars Robert De Niro as Frank Costello, mob boss, and Vito Genovese, mob boss. And yes, that is De Niro as two people at the same time sharing scenes in this film. One of which features a little bit of makeup, a little bit of appliance makeup to him, and one of which features a lot of makeup. And this is a film that did not quite work for me. So this is one of those things that where you're like, oh my God, all of these names. You've got De Niro, you've got Levinson, you've got Pileggi together again, and people who made Goodfellas are getting back together again. And Goodfellas was a long time ago, and Scorsese was part of that. And it just didn't quite come together. I'm not going to say this was bad, but it didn't quite work for me. So you have the tale of these two people, Costello and Genovese, who were kids in New York back way long ago, and one had to leave the country for a long period of time. And when he does that, when Genovese leaves the country for a long time, Costello sort of steps up and steps in and takes over his mob action. Eventually Genovese comes back, and he's like he wants to hit the ground running, and he wants back everything that he felt was taken from him. And so there's this push and pull with the two guys, and it becomes deadly. I'm not going to tell you the whole story. There is an assassination attempt on Costello that's brought about by Genovese, and it's a lot of mafia politicking of how things are supposed to be done, and how should somebody pay for breaking the rules and not following the rules, and how's it all going to go, and who will survive, and what will be left of them. I saw the trailer for this a few weeks ago, and it gave me a vibe that it was not going to be very good. It looked cheap. The idea of De Niro in two roles was really weird. He was wearing a lot of makeup in one of those roles that was very distracting. And the cast didn't look that strong to me, and it just looked like it looked like it was something that was not going to be as good as people wanted it to be. And that's kind of how I felt about it ultimately. So the story takes place over the span of several decades really, because you see these guys as mostly in flashback, these guys in their younger years through like grainy black and white photography and still photos and all that. And then you see them in much later years, which is where the bulk of the movie takes place, up to the point where the Kefauver hearings start happening, and the government is looking into the mafia and breaking up organized crime and all that, and it gets into that. So it's based on a true story. But let's take it. I'll go into a couple of areas here. First of all, the whole idea of this movie feeling cheap. It's well made. I mean, certainly Barry Levinson knows how to make a good movie. It feels like it was a very limited budget, which it probably was. Certain scenes feel smaller than they maybe should, not as grand as they maybe should, feeling a little rushed, shot a little tight so that you didn't have to have as many people or as much set decoration or whatever. Every car, and it could just be the nature of the characters in this film, but it's one of those movies where everybody's clothes are always perfect, everybody's car is always perfect, and sometimes that works fine, and sometimes it just feels like they just rolled out of the collector's showroom and they're being, things that look a little inauthentic. For the most part, it does look like the period it's supposed to take place in. There is a moment in the film that is a cardinal sin of movie making where they're using a photo of somebody in I don't remember if it was either a news report, it may have been a news report of somebody being killed, and they use a still frame from a scene earlier in the film, and I was like, whoa, that's not great. There's a lot of narration in this film. There's a lot of voiceover narration by De Niro as the Costello character, and it starts out he's talking about them as kids, and then at some point you see him as an old man, like talking to the camera, and then it's a lot of narration, and then it's a guy, a radio announcer like in the 30s or 40s giving narration on what's going on and who everybody is, and then there's a lot of TV reports that feature narration on what's going on. There's a lot of exposition in this movie. This movie really felt to me, and I see this a lot now, this movie runs about 2 hours, kind of felt like 2 hours, and it really felt like this was originally a limited series for streaming. Like this was a 3, 4, 6-parter that was edited down to be a 2-hour. This feels like a You're the Hunter from the Future situation to me, where it feels like a lot of this would have had more of an impact if you spent more time with some of these characters. We jump around in time quite a bit, and I didn't really care. De Niro, not going to say De Niro isn't great and that I don't really like De Niro, but oftentimes De Niro these days just feels like De Niro. He just kind of shows up and does his De Niro thing. And that's really kind of what he feels like as Frank Costello to me. As Vito Genovese, he seems a little bit different, but it was just distracting to me. Like the whole time I'm like, it's De Niro. The makeup looks interesting. His lips aren't quite mobile. Is that a new nose? Like, I wasn't paying attention to the character. I was paying attention to the makeup and the fact that it was, oh, technology is good and has been since, Back to the Future 2, that lets us put two of the same actor in the same scene walking around, interacting with each other, and it looks natural. That's really well done. But overall, the Debra Messing character as Costello's wife is just there to sort of be worried about things. It felt streamlined and rushed. There were a few moments that I did enjoy, but overall, it's nice to see a movie for grown-ups in theaters. I'll say that. I'll always appreciate anything that's intelligent and made for adults because we don't really get a lot of that outside the art house anymore. And this was a Warner Brothers release, but I wouldn't really. People are going to want to try to lump this in with Goodfellas and The Godfather, and this is really far away from Goodfellas and The Godfather. Your mileage may vary. I didn't think it was that great. It was interesting enough while I watched it, but it was nothing I would see again. And it was really, unless you're a huge fan of De Niro or Levinson or the facts behind this story. And there's another guy too, the guy who is dispatched by Genovese to shoot, I would say the guy who was dispatched by De Niro to shoot De Niro, the guy who was dispatched by Genovese to shoot Costello acts goofy. And he's always doing this. Like maybe the guy had like a double chin or a thick neck in real life, but there's one scene where it looks like he's wearing a scarf made of flesh. And he's always doing this and he's always making goofy faces and acting really silly. And the tone didn't really fit in with the rest of the movie. There's a sequence in a car where they're talking about the Mormons or something like that. Certain sequences felt very improvised and sometimes improvisation is great. And sometimes it just really feels like dialogue that's being made up for the sake of talking, and that I got that vibe a couple times. So I was not really that high on the Alto Nights. Your mileage may vary in theaters now.